I want you to start off today by picturing the smartest person you can possibly imagine.
Right, just like close your eyes and sift through your cultural memory.
Exactly. Try to conjure up the absolute ultimate genius.
Mm.
And if you're like most people, your brain probably just served up a very specific Hollywood trope.
Oh, absolutely. It's always a very distinct character.
Yeah, you're picturing someone loud, hyper-confident,
Right.
probably dominating a brightly lit room, right?
Standing in front of a giant transparent glass board.
Always the glass board.
Eh.
And they're aggressively scribbling complex math equations with a dry erase marker.
Well, casually insulting everyone else's intelligence in the room.
Right, they always have the perfect cutting comeback. They never hesitate. They're just uh, this unstoppable force of intellectual nature.
And that cinematic genius is incredibly entertaining to watch. It provides this satisfying, completely linear narrative of what intelligence is supposed to look like.
Because it's clean.
Yeah.
Right, it's visible.
Yeah, it's entirely binary. You're either the smartest person in the room, and making sure everyone knows it, or you aren't.
Pop culture loves the idea that extreme intelligence comes with this, like abrasive, extroverted arrogance.
Well, yeah, because it makes the genius a character you can easily spot from across the room.
But when you step out of the movie theater and into the world of actual, measurable, profound cognitive ability, that glass board just shatters.
It really does. The actual diagnostic landscape of what true genius looks like it's incredibly murky.
Yeah, psychological research paints a completely different, almost entirely paradoxical picture. We're dealing with behaviors that often look like the exact opposite of what we expect.
Right, because what cognitive psychologists have discovered over decades of studying highly gifted individuals is that a profoundly high IQ doesn't just make you a little bit smarter.
Or like a little bit faster at solving math problems.
Exactly. It fundamentally rewrites the entire way a person processes the physical and social world. The baseline operating system is just, well, entirely different.
And because that operating system is different, the output, their daily behavior, their social interactions, looks deeply unfamiliar,
Yeah, and often quite strange to the rest of the population.
which is exactly what we're going to get into today. We are taking a custom-curated journey straight into the mind of a profound genius.
It's going to be a fascinating deep dive.
We're going to shatter those preconceived notions using a groundbreaking psychological breakdown from a source called Turn Wiser. It identifies 11 specific, scientifically backed traits found in extremely high IQ individuals.
And to keep this from feeling like a dry psychology lecture, we're anchoring this whole exploration to a very real subject.
Yes, we're mapping these traits directly onto a man whose mind is actively building the future you are going to live in.
Which is crucial. Abstract concepts need a human anchor. We need to see how these neurological differences actually manifest in a real high-pressure environment.
So let me paint the visual anchor for you. I'm looking at a photograph that serves as the foundation for our discussion today.
It's quite a striking image.
It really is. It's Dr. Ninchi Bilang, PhD. He's an older gentleman, thick white beard, wire-rimmed glasses, and he's standing in this quiet, highly secure DARPA lab.
Surrounded by massive server racks, oscilloscopes, monitors with cascading code.
Right, but what he's interacting with is the true focal point. He's holding a stylus, leaning intently over this glowing, transparent glass cube.
Filled with intricate, illuminated circuitry.
Yeah, and on the heavy metallic base of it, it says PI Project.
The contrast there is just amazing. You have the organic, intensely human presence of Dr. Lang against this sterile, hyper-advanced technology.
It perfectly captures the tension of his work. Now, the resume attached to this man is, it's almost difficult to comprehend.
It really is. He's widely considered one of the world's leading AI scientists.
Known in closed circles as the creator of the predictive algorithm, basically the father of sentient thinking computers, and his measured IQ is 275.
We really need to pause on that number. Context is vital when we throw around a number like 275.
Yeah, put that into perspective for us.
Well, we operate on a standardized distribution curve, where an IQ of 100 is the median average. An IQ of 130 puts you in the top 2%.
Which is Mensa level, right?
Exactly. That's the threshold for Mensa. And the estimated IQ of Albert Einstein sits around 1 in 60.
Wow. Okay, so 160 for Einstein.
Right. So to possess an IQ of 275 is to exist in a statistical stratosphere that literally breaks standardized testing metrics.
It's like an alien level of cognitive processing.
It is. It's an engine running at a speed and capacity that our traditional models of human intelligence simply can't map.
And his academic history reflects that anomalous speed perfectly. He graduated from Caltech with a PhD in computer science.
Holds a master's in digital engineering from MIT.
Earned another PhD from Princeton in physics.
Mm.
But the detail that really forces you to recalibrate your brain is this. He graduated from Trenton State College with a bachelor's degree on the exact same day he graduated from high school.
Wait, the exact same day?
The exact same day.
That's a textbook example of the asynchronous development we see in profound giftedness.
What do you mean by asynchronous development?
Well, standardized education is built on chronological age. But for a mind operating at that caliber, chronological age is completely detached from cognitive development.
So while his peers were just trying to get through standard high school classes,
His mind had already devoured and synthesized an entire undergraduate degree's worth of specialized collegiate knowledge. The intake valve for information is just wedged wide open.
it's incredible. And by understanding how a mind like his operates, by looking at this image of him alone in that lab, we're going to uncover a massive societal paradox.
A really important one, yeah.
We're going to discover why the individuals who build the technology that fundamentally rewrites our society almost always operate quietly, deep in the shadows.
The people creating systems that connect us most intimately are usually the most disconnected from the public eye.
Exactly. So let's start with that immediate visual of Dr. Lang. He's alone, hyper-focused. The environment looks incredibly quiet, insulated from the outside world.
And that physical isolation isn't an accident. It's not just some quirk of his DARPA security clearance.
Right. It perfectly mirrors two of the most misunderstood markers of high intelligence from our source material: a deep preference for solitude and a tendency to observe far more than they speak.
And society immediately assumes that when someone spends a vast amount of time alone, they must be antisocial or misanthropic.
Or that they just lack basic interpersonal skills. We totally pathologize solitude.
We really do, but the psychological and neurological reality of profound intelligence completely upends that assumption.
So it's not that they hate people.
No, not at all. The need for isolation has very little to do with disliking humanity and everything to do with the mechanical limits of the prefrontal cortex.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics of that. I want to know exactly what the prefrontal cortex is doing that demands so much isolation.
Well, the prefrontal cortex is the executive control center of the brain. It's responsible for complex reasoning, long-term strategic planning, deep philosophical reflection.
All the heavy lifting.
Exactly. And in a highly intelligent brain, this area is continuously processing an almost incomprehensible volume of data. It's synthesizing variables, running simulations, holding conflicting concepts simultaneously.
But why does it need to be quiet for that?
Because for the prefrontal cortex to function at its absolute optimal level without dropping any data points, it requires stillness. It needs an environment free from unpredictable external distractions.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, though, because I'm sure someone listening is thinking, are we sure they aren't just socially anxious?
It's a fair question. It's easy to label someone a solitary genius when they might just be terrified of social judgment.
Right. So how do we differentiate between social anxiety and this cognitive need for solitude?
Social anxiety is rooted in fear, specifically the fear of negative evaluation. That's an emotional response localized heavily in the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center.
Okay, the fight or flight area.
Right. But the solitude of high intelligence is rooted in bandwidth management. It's not an emotional retreat from fear. It's a structural retreat to allocate resources.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And there's a landmark study published by the London School of Economics about this, right?
Yes, they utilized the Savannah theory of happiness to explain it. They surveyed thousands of adults to see how population density and social interaction affected life satisfaction.
And the Savannah theory basically says our brains evolved to be happiest in small hunter-gatherer groups, right? Like maybe 150 people.
Exactly. It suggests constant social interaction was vital for physical survival back then.
So our brains are essentially wired to feel safe and happy when we're constantly surrounded by our tribe.
For the vast majority of the population, yes. The study confirmed that for most people, more frequent social interaction directly correlates with higher reported life satisfaction.
But there was an anomaly.
A glaring, statistically significant anomaly. For highly intelligent individuals, the correlation completely inverted.
Meaning more socialization made them less happy.
Yes, they actually reported lower life satisfaction from frequent social interaction.
Which seems to defy the entire evolutionary logic of human survival.
Yeah.
Why would the smartest people be miserable at a party?
Well, the researchers hypothesized that higher intelligence allows individuals to adapt more readily to modern environments. They can override that ancient evolutionary imperative.
Because they don't need the tribe to survive in the same way anymore.
Right. And you also have to realize that for an average brain, social interaction is relatively straightforward. You listen, you respond, you enjoy the shared emotional resonance.
But for a highly intelligent brain.
It is an incredibly complex, non-stop data gathering exercise. They are actively analyzing tone, micro-expressions, underlying social dynamics, subtext.
Wow, just all at once.
Everything. They're computing power dynamics, scanning for logical fallacies in casual conversation, buffering their own responses so they don't alienate people.
So it's deeply engaging, but enormously cognitively expensive.
That's the perfect way to put it. It uses a massive amount of cognitive fuel.
Let me give an analogy for you listening. Think of the high IQ brain like a massive, liquid-cooled supercomputer that is currently rendering a hyper-realistic 3D universe.
I love this analogy.
It's doing math at a level that looks almost magical. But then you force that supercomputer into a crowded networking event, which is the equivalent of opening up a dozen highly demanding background applications all at once.
Facial recognition, emotional subtext algorithms, conversational buffering.
Exactly. The system is trying to render its 3D universe while running all that social software. And if you keep all those background apps open, the system risks overheating. The rendering starts to lag.
So solitude isn't a rejection of the world.
No, solitude is the required cooling system.
And if we look back at Dr. Lang in the DARPA lab, working on the PI project, that secure environment is his cooling system.
Right, he's attempting to build a predictive algorithm, a synthetic mind that can anticipate human action.
You simply cannot render that kind of intellectual universe while simultaneously managing the unpredictable background noise of standard human interaction.
Which also explains trait number 7 from the source material. Why they tend to observe rather than speak. If they're in a room, they're usually the quietest one there.
In any group setting, highly intelligent people often default to watching. They're running that massive data gathering program.
Listening to what is not being said just as intently as what is being said.
Yes. They're mapping out who defers to whom, where the hidden tensions lie, what the conversation is actually about beneath the polite surface.
They want a complete mental model of the environment before they inject their own variables into it.
Exactly. But society gets this completely backwards.
Because they're quiet, people assume they're slow. The loud extrovert who talks over everyone is viewed as the smart leader, while the quiet observer is assumed to have nothing to add.
It is a profound, tragic irony of modern corporate and social culture. The person sitting quietly in the corner is frequently assumed to lack confidence or insight.
When in reality, they probably hold the most high-resolution picture of the room.
Because their cognitive ability allows for greater accuracy in reading those complex social cues. They aren't slower thinkers, they're just gathering vastly more data before formulating a response.
I mean, to predict human behavior, which is Dr. Lang's whole goal, you have to be the ultimate observer. You understand humanity by quietly, intensely watching it, not by talking at it.
His isolation in that lab isn't a sign that he's detached from humanity. It's the precise cognitive environment required to process the massive amount of data needed to make a computer think.
You think about other historical geniuses, like Nikola Tesla. He spent his later years alone in a New York hotel room, feeding pigeons, completely isolated from society.
Because Tesla's isolation was a necessary byproduct of the scale of his internal processing.
He was designing complex alternating current systems entirely in his head, right?
Literally visualizing the magnetic fields rotating and calculating the electrical load before drawing a single blueprint. You just don't have the bandwidth left to navigate a Manhattan dinner party after that.
The brain forces a choice between the work and the world. I think this completely reframes how we view introversion.
It really does. It takes the stigma away.
Yeah. When you crave quiet time after a long day, your brain might simply be demanding the bandwidth to process a complex environment.
But here's where the reality of the genius mind takes a sharp turn.
Right. Because from the outside, Dr. Lang looks quiet and still. But our source reveals that while the outside is silent, the inside is an absolute chaotic storm of activity.
We're moving from the physical stillness of the lab to the relentless, physically demanding machinery of his mind. A mind that never fully switches off.
And a brain that gets bored much faster than anyone else's. Let's talk about that internal restlessness.
It's a biological hallmark of profound intelligence. The source material highlights the work of psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski.
The Polish psychiatrist, right. He studied gifted individuals in the mid-20th century.
Yes, often in the wake of immense trauma following World War II. He noticed that highly gifted people didn't just think differently, they experienced the world with a heightened physiological intensity.
And he called these overexcitabilities, right? Specifically, psychomotor overexcitability.
Correct.
When I hear that, I picture someone who physically can't sit still, like tapping their foot, pacing the room.
It absolutely can manifest as physical pacing or rapid speech, but in the highly intelligent, it more frequently expresses itself as a relentless internal mental energy.
A drive to think and process that just doesn't have an off switch.
People with very high IQs frequently report that their thinking never stops. Not when they're trying to sleep, not on vacation, not sitting on a beach.
There's always a background process running. Turning over a math problem, revisiting a past conversation, building a new theory.
Or running complex mental simulations for events that haven't even happened yet.
Now, the source material also mentions neuroscientist Rex Young's research at the University of New Mexico. I want to dig into this.
It's fascinating because it moves us from psychology into hard neuroscience. He wasn't just giving people IQ tests, he was physically mapping their brains.
How does the physical wiring of a genius brain differ to cause this endless running?
Jung utilized a technique called diffusion tensor imaging, or DTI. Traditional MRIs show us the gray matter, which are the processing centers.
Okay.
But DTI allows us to map the white matter tracks. White matter is essentially the brain's cabling. It's the physical information highway connecting different processing regions.
So he was looking at the cables, not just the computers.
Exactly. He looked at a metric called fractional anisotropy, which basically measures how efficiently water molecules travel along these white matter tracks.
And what did he find?
He found that higher intelligence didn't just correlate with faster processing in one specific area. It correlated with denser, richer, more highly organized connectivity between distant regions of the brain.
Wow. So the brain of a genius isn't just a faster processor, it's a completely different wiring schematic.
The highly intelligent brain is making massive simultaneous connections across a vast network of disparate ideas all at once.
Connecting a visual stimulus to a logical puzzle while dragging up a historical memory simultaneously.
It orchestrates a constant symphony of interconnected thoughts. And that level of constant physical connectivity is exactly what makes rest so difficult.
The brain isn't malfunctioning when it keeps you awake at 3 a.m. It's physically constructed to run those complex roads.
Right. If you look back at our image of Dr. Lang, the intricate glowing wire mesh inside the PI project cube is basically an external manifestation of his own brain's white matter.
Inventing sentient computing isn't just a career choice for him. It's a biological necessity. He has to feed a brain that is permanently revved up.
Which introduces a massive problem, boredom.
Right. Because the brain is so highly connected, it requires a constant stream of novel input just to maintain baseline engagement.
Neuroscientific research links higher cognitive ability to higher baseline dopamine activity in the prefrontal cortex.
Dopamine being the brain's reward system for encountering novel information and solving puzzles.
Exactly. But what happens when a high IQ individual actually solves the problem? Once the pattern is recognized, that dopamine signal drops sharply and rapidly.
So what was thrilling yesterday is agonizingly boring today. They process the novelty out of a situation so much faster.
It's a severe physiological response to insufficient stimulation.
People really glamorize extreme intelligence without realizing what a massive biological burden it actually is. Let's use an analogy to make this relatable.
Please do.
Think about going to the grocery store. For an average person, it's just a mundane chore. You walk in, grab milk, leave.
Right, simple enough.
But imagine having a brain built like a custom Formula One sports car. It's designed to corner at 200 miles per hour.
Yeah.
But you are forced to drive it exclusively in school zone traffic.
It would be excruciating.
Exactly. When you walk into the grocery store, your brain can't just buy milk. It instantly starts analyzing the supply chain logistics of the produce section.
Optimizing the most mathematically efficient route through the aisles.
Calculating the psychological manipulation of the end cap displays. It over-engineers the mundane task because it's desperately starving for friction.
That analogy perfectly captures the physical frustration of it.
If you don't give a mind like Dr. Lang's an open highway, like a multi-billion-dollar DARPA AI project, the engine will literally tear itself apart from the inside out with boredom.
This is why you see highly intelligent people constantly pivoting in their careers or pursuing 5 different, intensely complex hobbies simultaneously.
It makes Dr. Lang's academic history make perfect sense. He mastered the fundamental architecture of computing with his computer science PhD. The dopamine dropped.
So what does he do? He goes to Princeton for a PhD in physics.
He needed to understand the foundational laws of the universe itself just to keep the engine running.
It's purely about finding the next sufficient level of friction.
But if we stop here, you have a brain running at F1 speeds, constantly searching for new challenges, processing data faster than anyone. Logic says Dr. Lang sits down and blasts out the code for a sentient AI in a weekend.
But the reality is the exact opposite. That massive connective power actually creates a paralyzing bottleneck.
Because they see all the moving parts. When you see every moving part, you see exactly how many thousands of ways it can catastrophically fail.
Which brings us to the traits of extreme hesitation and doubt. The source material addresses this through Carol Dweck's concept of complexity awareness.
This perfectly explains the bizarre phenomenon of genius-level procrastination, doesn't it?
It does. Highly intelligent people can effortlessly knock out minor, low-stakes tasks. But when it comes to the work that truly matters, they often experience a profound, agonizing paralysis.
Let me push back on this, though. In the corporate world, procrastination is universally viewed as laziness. We don't call it complexity awareness. We put people on a performance improvement plan.
Sure, but it's crucial to distinguish between avoiding effort and avoiding flawed output.
So it's not laziness.
Laziness is a reluctance to expend energy. Procrastination in the highly gifted is often an abundance of foresight that just completely overwhelms the executive function.
How does that happen?
Before a high IQ brain even begins a significant piece of work, it instantly comprehends the entire scope of what excellent would require. It visualizes the perfect finished product.
But because of that dense white matter connectivity.
It also sees every single potential point of failure. It sees every way the physical output will inevitably fall short of that pristine internal vision.
The procrastination is born from the terrifying gap between the perfection of the idea and the messy reality of creating it. It's not an absence of care, it's the paralyzing presence of too much care.
So when Dr. Lang delays writing a crucial piece of core architecture for weeks, he isn't slacking off. He is engaging in wildly advanced risk assessment.
Imagine the crushing weight of what he's building.
Hmm.
A predictive sentient algorithm. If he gets it wrong, if it develops a malicious model, the consequences could be globally catastrophic.
The hesitation is a deep reverence for the danger of what he's building.
Think about climbing a mountain. For an average person, you climb to the first ridge, look down at the village, and feel a massive sense of accomplishment. You conquered the world.
Because that's all you can see.
Right. But the higher you climb, the higher your IQ, the more you breach the cloud line. And when you reach the summit, you suddenly realize you're standing on one small peak in the middle of a vast, unexplored mountain range.
The sheer scale of what you haven't mastered yet becomes terrifyingly visible.
It makes you hesitant to take the next step because you're acutely aware of how small your current knowledge actually is.
And that realization leads directly to intellectual humility. It's the mechanism behind the Dunning-Kruger effect, but at the extreme high end.
Most people know Dunning-Kruger as the reason the loudest guy at the bar thinks he can coach an NFL team. Stupid people being too stupid to know they're stupid.
That's the colloquial understanding of David Dunning and Justin Kruger's 1999 paper, yeah. Low-competence individuals lack the metacognitive ability to recognize their own mistakes.
But how does it work for the geniuses?
At the high end of intelligence, the effect inverts. Highly intelligent people understand the complexity of a subject so intimately. They've encountered the paradoxes, the gray areas. They see the entire mountain range.
So they're far more likely to genuinely acknowledge the limits of their knowledge.
Exactly. When a high IQ person says, "I don't know," it is not a social performance. It's precision. It's an honest acknowledgement of the vast territory of uncertainty.
It's the ultimate red flag in any intellectual space. The person who holds every opinion with absolute certainty is almost never the smartest person in the room. Certainty is just a symptom of a low-resolution map.
And this awareness breeds a persistent, gnawing self-doubt. The source material brings in the work of psychologist Albert Ellis.
He developed rational emotive behavior therapy, right?
He did. And he observed what he called masturbatory thinking in highly driven individuals. This rigid internal demand that they absolutely must perform perfectly.
Holding themselves to punishingly high internal standards. Standards they would never apply to anyone else.
Yes. They treat any gap between their theoretical potential and their actual human performance as evidence of fundamental inadequacy. They genuinely doubt if their thinking is as reliable as everyone assumes.
I'm looking back at Dr. Lang, IQ 275, 4 world-class degrees. And he's probably experiencing profound imposter syndrome, staring at that glowing cube, thinking, I might be a fraud.
And yet, that doubt is the exact mechanism that keeps the intellect rigorous. It prevents dogmatic thinking and forces continuous reevaluation.
Saw this with Alan Turing, too. He broke the Enigma code, essentially laying the groundwork for modern computing.
But his personal writings are filled with hesitation. He constantly acknowledged the limitations of his machines and the ethical cliffs of artificial intelligence.
He carried the crushing burden of complexity awareness. Now, if we pause and look at the profile we've built, it seems incredibly bleak.
It sounds like a heavy burden.
An endlessly running brain that isolates you, gets painfully bored, and constantly tortures you with feelings of inadequacy. You'd assume these individuals cope by shutting down their emotions entirely.
Which is the other half of the Hollywood trope. The cold, unfeeling robot scientist.
Right. But the source material completely dismantles that stereotype. It moves us into the realm of intense sensitivity.
Let's return to Dabrowski's overexcitabilities. Alongside the psychomotor overexcitability, he identified emotional overexcitability.
So the engine isn't just revving intellectually, it's revving emotionally too.
Profoundly so. The societal assumption is that logic and emotion are on a seesaw. If logic is high, emotion must be low. But empirical psychology proves the inverse.
People with elevated IQs actually feel things with greater intensity.
Yes. The source material references a study in the journal Intelligence by researcher Ruth Karpinski. She developed the hyperbrain-hyperbody theory.
Break that down for us. What did Karpinski actually find?
She surveyed Mensa members, looking at physiological and psychological health, and compared them to the national average. She found a direct correlation. The hyperbrain resulted in a hyperbody.
Meaning their central nervous systems were highly sensitized.
Exactly. When they encounter moral questions, aesthetic beauty, or observe human behavior, their emotional response is amplified by their capacity to fully comprehend the nuances.
They possess an acute sensitivity to art, music, and especially human suffering. But if they're experiencing this overwhelming emotional intensity, why do they look like cold robots to us?
Because they're remarkably adept at masking. They learned very early in childhood that their authentic level of emotional intensity disturbs average people.
Like a gifted child reacting to a tragic news story with devastating depth, and adults label them as overly dramatic.
Right, so they learn to suppress the external display. They intellectualize their feelings to make them palatable for public consumption. They present the logic and hide the emotion.
But internally, the resonance is deafening. Let's override the steel trap myth with a better analogy.
What do you have in mind?
The high IQ mind is not an unfeeling vault of facts. It's a hypersensitive, finely tuned seismograph.
Oh, that's excellent.
It's violently picking up the emotional earthquakes, the subtle tremors in human suffering, the slight vibrations of moral ambiguity that average minds completely sleep through.
And you think about Dr. Lang's objective. A predictive algorithm for human behavior. You absolutely cannot program that if you view humans as sterile data points.
Right. You must possess intense emotional resonance to map the human condition. The irrational fears, the conflicting desires. He has to feel all of that to code it into the PI project.
And this intense emotional and logical sensitivity connects directly to their cognitive flexibility.
Trait number 6. Because they care so deeply about the accuracy of their mental map, they exhibit a remarkable willingness to completely abandon their own beliefs.
Which society also gets wrong. In politics, changing your mind based on new evidence makes you a flip-flopper. We view it as weakness.
Average intelligence often ties belief to core identity. An attack on a belief feels like a physical attack on the self, triggering cognitive dissonance.
But highly intelligent people treat beliefs merely as working theories. They detach their ego. When new evidence contradicts a long-held belief, their brain simply updates the model.
It's pure cognitive agility. They don't experience changing their mind as an attack. It's a necessary upgrade.
If a road on your map is a dead end, you erase it and draw the correct path. You don't stubbornly drive into a brick wall to defend the map's honor.
Dr. Lang has probably rewritten the foundational code of his sentient algorithm 1,000 times. He has the flexibility to realize a core assumption was flawed and just delete it without a second thought.
The accurate map of the future is always more important than his own pride.
Now we reach the culmination of everything we've discussed. You have a brain requiring intense solitude, a continuously wired network demanding novelty, a mind paralyzed by complexity and self-doubt.
While feeling the emotional weight of the world like a seismograph.
When a mind built exactly like that tries to find its place in an average, standard definition world, what happens?
It struggles profoundly, and it inevitably retreats to the shadows. This brings us to the final traits: the struggle to find intellectual peers, and a persistent sense of not belonging.
Let's look at the struggle for peers. If someone says, I can't find anyone smart enough to talk to, it sounds incredibly arrogant. Doesn't stimulus poverty just mean you're an elitist?
It's deeply important to understand this isn't about assigning human worth. It is purely about cognitive bandwidth.
How so?
Psychologist Lita Hollingworth explored stimulus poverty in the 1920s and 30s, studying profoundly gifted children with IQs above 180. She observed a desperate longing for true intellectual connection, not arrogance.
High IQ individuals want someone who can follow an idea all the way down the rabbit hole without needing to turn back or over-explain the basics.
Right. It's the frustration of wanting to discuss the fundamental nature of the universe while everyone else wants to talk about reality TV. The conversation is literally starving them.
And the result of this chronic stimulus poverty is a behavioral adaptation called calibrating down.
Yes. When highly intelligent people enter a room, they rapidly assess the cognitive bandwidth. Then they artificially lower their own resolution to match the room.
They hide their intensity, simplify their vocabulary. A massive portion of who they actually are never even enters the room.
They survive socially by performing a heavily diluted version of themselves, which is incredibly exhausting.
That constant translation leads directly to a quiet, persistent sense of not quite belonging anywhere. The source material mentions Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi here.
The psychologist famous for the concept of flow.
Yeah. He found that individuals with exceptional capacity almost universally describe their inner lives as uniquely complex and incredibly hard to share.
It creates a subtle displacement. It's not an angry alienation, just a quiet, melancholic awareness of being slightly out of sync with the environment.
Resolution is the perfect way to frame it. If everyone else is navigating the world in a standard definition broadcast, your brain is processing it in 8K IMAX.
Of course you're going to feel out of sync. You're noticing macroscopic patterns and subtle tragedies that literally do not exist on everyone else's screen.
The ordinary world simply cannot hold their depth. So we bring it all the way back to our visual anchor, Dr. Lang, standing alone, bathed in the glow of the PI project.
We asked at the beginning why the architects of our future always operate in the shadows.
And now we have the neurological and psychological answer. Dr. Lang lives out of sync because everyday society lacks the resolution his brain requires.
He's insulated in that lab because it's the absolute only environment that can accommodate his structural need for solitude, his massive mental connectivity, and his emotional sensitivity.
He operates in the shadows because the bright lights and low resolution of normal society are blindingly inadequate for his operating system.
Exactly.
But looking at Dr. Lang, I want to raise a poignant, slightly haunting question for you to ponder. We know he suffers from stimulus poverty.
Finding a true intellectual peer is statistically almost impossible for him.
Right. So is the PI project, this massive attempt to build a sentient thinking computer, is it actually his desperate attempt to cure his own loneliness?
Oh, wow.
If you have an IQ of 275 and literally cannot find a peer in the human world who can follow you to the bottom of an idea, do you retreat to the shadows to mathematically build one?
That frames the entire pursuit of AI in a deeply tragic, deeply human light.
Is artificial general intelligence not just an arms race, but the ultimate search for a companion that speaks the same high-resolution language?
It suggests the driving force at the bleeding edge of tech isn't just progress. It's a profound desire to be understood by something capable of processing the world at your speed.
What a journey this has been. We started with the loud Hollywood stereotype and completely dismantled it. Extreme intelligence is not a performance.
No, it's a demanding, high-resolution filter on the world.
An operating system requiring intense solitude. A relentlessly wired engine constantly searching for novelty. It grapples with endless doubt because it clearly sees the vast unknown mountain range.
It feels the emotional weight of the world profoundly and masks it just to survive.
And ultimately, it results in the genius standing alone, completely out of sync, in the shadows of the very future they're building.
It's a vital paradigm shift. The behaviors we pathologize, the isolation, the restlessness, the doubt, the need to recalibrate are not malfunctions.
They are the exact mechanisms allowing these minds to push the boundaries of human achievement. I want you to take this away with you today.
Absolutely.
The next time you feel completely out of sync with a room, or feel a restless energy you can't explain, or a paralyzing wave of doubt about a project, or when you intensely crave solitude just to process the day.
Don't immediately assume something is wrong with you.
Don't pathologize your own complexity. It might not be a malfunction. It might simply be your brain doing exactly what it was brilliantly built to do. You might just be operating at a higher resolution than the environment you're in.
Beautifully said.
And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over long after this deep dive ends. You interact with predictive algorithms every single day.
On your phone, your computer, curating your social media feeds?
The technology Dr. Lang helped pioneer is quietly anticipating your desires. The next time an AI perfectly predicts your needs, serving you exactly what you wanted before you even knew you wanted it, take a moment.
Consider the mind that built it.
Consider the intensely sensitive, restless, doubting, and profoundly isolated mind of the person sitting alone in a lab, staring into a glowing cube. Are we, as a society, forcing our brightest minds into the shadows of loneliness and stimulus poverty, just so our screens can light up with the easy answers we want? The glass board is shattered. The reality is much quieter, much more isolated, and infinitely more complex.